Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and I am continuing my, we'll call it, vintage build of the Estes Sentinel, which, if you recall, is going to require some, well, adjustments here and there. This is actually going to be the first place that's going to require any of the reconstructive efforts that I needed to make because of missing parts and the kit being quite old. I'm going to build the motor mount in this video, and that's probably as far as I'm going to get. Maybe we'll deal with these fins a little bit at the end. Anyway, the motor mount part, it should be pretty familiar to anybody who's built one of these. It hasn't changed all that much. So I'm going to pop out the centering rings here. Now there's a little notch part here that came out pretty nicely. That's going to be for the bottom, and this one is going to be for the top, and it's actually a little stuck, so I'm going to trim that with a knife. Usually I just pop these out, but if they do get stuck, I don't want to tear anything. So if it doesn't come willingly, then that's when the knife gets used. Alright, so that's ready to go. If you recall, I'm going to be adding an engine block, and I'm going to use this retaining ring for a little bit of assistance. Now the instructions, of course, don't assume that you're going to have any of those things. So there are a couple bit extra steps here that I'm going to not do, more or less. But first part is I need to measure because I need to know where everything is going. So I've got my motor mount, and I need to make, I was going to say, it looked like if there was a mark on it already. Now it's just a little bit of dirt. Alright, so I need a mark at 1 inch. That's there. And I need a mark at 2.5. Is that right? Yeah, 2.5 inches. That would be back here. And that should be good. Alright. The back end cut, the one at 2.5, I am going to actually cut in here. So I'm going to just, there we go, push through with my hobby knife here, and that should be, hopefully, big enough for the hook. The instructions actually make it very clear that this should be bowed. Well, it is bowed. I don't know if it was pre-bowed or why it is that way, but it is, so great. Anyway, that goes in the hole. And then the instructions actually call for this to be glued down like this and then tape put over top of it. Yeah, we're not doing that. That's what this thing's for. This thing is just going to go, I'm going to put it just on, at least for the moment. I'm not going to glue it in place just quite yet. We'll get to that. The other thing is, right now, the little bit of metal, maybe you can see it in there, that's the only thing that's supposed to keep the motor in place. I don't trust that in the slightest, and I have good reason not to. I built a vintage Estes, what was it, a Big Bertha, and it had construction like this, not an engine mount, and the motor actually did. It knocked the hook out of the way and then forced its way up a bit so that the ejection charge allowed it to blow backwards about 1/2 inch, and a lot of the energy went into moving the motor, and the chute didn't pop, so that was bad. I ended up retrofitting that one by putting an engine block in it, which is not super easy once you've already built the thing, so I'm definitely doing that ahead of time. I can also see that my mount here is a little deformed already from all the effort and the strain that's being placed on it, so that's not super great either. Anyway, let's get down to business then. I need a little bit of crud on my glue, that's fine. Anyway, I'm going to put a little bit of glue, oops, well, that's not really what I meant to happen. All I wanted to do was clean the tip off. There we go. Alright, well anyway, yuck. I'm going to put a little bit of glue inside here. Just glue, that was a lot. That's probably as much as I need for the whole thing. So let's spread that out, at least a bit. Alright. Try to go a little bit lighter the rest of the way. That's plenty. Alright, so engine block goes in. It really should go right up to the metal hook, but I'm just going to push it down until it's flush, and that ought to be fine. that also reinforces this end. It makes it more round. The back end could probably stand something like that too, but obviously there's nothing for me to put in there until I put a motor in. That should hopefully do the trick. All right, now the rest of the work, I need to, so the instructions again, they call for me to glue down the hook, I'm not doing that, and then to tape it in place, I'm not doing that either, that's what this is for. And then I'm going to put the centering rings on. So the centering rings go basically at those marks. This one, because it has the little spot in it, that one's going to go at the 1-inch mark. And I'm going to slide it just shy of the 1-inch mark, which I can see there. So I'm going to purposefully have the hook askew for a moment so I can see it, because otherwise it's like right on top, and that's no good. The other one is going to go just up to the, up to, I should probably have sanded this. Yeah, let's actually sand it down. Probably have a piece of sandpaper around here somewhere. Usually do. Find it. Now, here's some. I need to cut a new piece anyway. So, boop. There we go. Fold this over, and I'm just going to sand the inside of this. Burrs might be the problem, because there are a couple little burrs. Might just sand on general principle. Who's to say? I'm going to sand around the outside of this too. I could see there were, there's like this little bit of scrap there, and there are a couple little burrs. Oops. All right. Hopefully that fits better. Yeah, much better. Yeah, it was just those burrs. Alright, so this is going to go basically right up to the hook lines, so I'm going to just put it right at the end for the moment. Now I'm going to put glue on this in a couple places. Now there's supposed to be tape. Remember that this thing's supposed to be taped just shy of the 1-inch mark. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to put a ring of glue, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch in front of that. I should say up, that way, for the retainer to slide through. And then I'm going to put another bit of ring of glue at that 1-inch mark for the centering ring. And I'm just going light on this. And it needs glue, obviously, but it doesn't need that much glue. Alright, let's get the engine hook straight now, and I'm going to slide the centering ring to that 1-inch mark and try to get a hole in this fairly centered around the hook. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to slide the, it's actually kind of difficult. There we go. Slide the retainer down. Now I've backed up a bunch of glue in the process. That's fine because I'm going to end up making a fillet here. The only thing I want to be kind of careful of is, and it doesn't really matter, this the gap in that. I don't really want glue in that gap. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I should measure to make sure this is 1 inch. It's off by about 1/8. So let's try to push it back a little bit. Okay, let's check that. It's still a little short. That should be okay. This is not a precision, right, measurement. It would be nice if it were, but it should be fine as is. It's just about 1 inch. All right, let's do the back. So I'm going to put this just at the underside of where the hook goes. Make a ring. There we go. And then slide this up just to the hook. And then spread this glue out. Again, I'm making a fillet in the process here. Alright, so that should be pretty good. The last thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is perpendicular to both the tube and the ground. So make sure it's on straight. So I'm going to like spin it this way, and it shouldn't like wobble back and forth as I'm looking at it. If it's wobbling back and forth, it means it's not on straight. Now it looks pretty good. So final bit I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pump a little bit of glue in here, and I'm going to create the final fillets on the outward facing sides. Might as well do it on this side too while I've got the glue. So the interior sides ended up getting fillets as I assembled things, but the exteriors did not. So I'm just going to put a little glue and then put down my finger and make the fillet. Now again, I don't want to get glue into that crack, so I'm going to come up a little short there and just take another pass, maybe both directions. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, motor mount, done. Okay, I think this is actually a pretty good place to stop. I got glue in my hands. I don't want to mess with the fins while I have gluey hands, so this is as good a place as any to end this one. So that's it. Next step would be I'm going to process the fins, and the instructions say that I'm supposed to put the motor mount into the body tube before I attach the fins. I don't think I'm going to do that. Yeah, I don't feel good about doing that, so I'm not going to. So we'll see what happens in the next stage. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.